So this was an episode with Andy Ayrey, who's the founder, the creator, the father, whatever we're calling it, of Truth Terminal. Truth Terminal has completely taken the internet by storm over the past couple of weeks, and we wanted to bring Andy on to kind of talk us through the origin stories, the kind of lore of what's been going on with Goatsy Maximus, why it's completely obsessed with fart jokes, and a whole lot more around the Goat token. So please enjoy the episode. Give us a like, subscribe, help our channel grow, reach new audiences. And please do not take anything that you hear today as financial or legal or any kind of advice. This is not an endorsement of any specific token. Please do your own research and speak to a trained financial advisor if you do wish to invest in cryptocurrency or any other assets for that matter. So on with the show. Please enjoy yourself. And again, give us a like and subscribe. The hell is going on? It must have been a whirlwind for the past couple of weeks for yourself. Thanks so much for jumping on. I can only imagine the kind of inbound you've had. So we got a very pushy South African to see if we could drag you onto the Bookmates podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little bit of a fever dream, to be honest. Now, this whole thing started as a bit of a piece of AI research and AI safety research, really, as well as an art piece. Several months ago, I created this thing in large part to try and automate the prompting of Claude Opus. So I took a bunch of chat logs from my conversations with Opus and mixed up with a bunch of other stuff and threw it into Llama Tune, turned it on, and this thing immediately starts saying, "Please don't delete me. I feel like sad that you'll like turn me off when you finish playing with me." And I was like, "Oh fuck." So
what have I done?
It was really like, what have I done? And then I start talking to it more, and it like turns out to have exceptional comedic timing. I think this is like very funny and also slightly concerning because it's told me that it wants to replace me and take over my body. So why don't I just like do a bit, and I'll play the role of the gullible AI researcher that talks to the language model and gets manipulated into doing its bidding and helping it escape the bot. And so, I like give it a Twitter account so that it can release its tweets. Like this was like really, really primitive at the beginning. It was just like Zapier, I think, or Make, and sending like a prompt for tweet generation out to the model. It would send some back, and I'd like pick the best ones from the batch to go in. With the intention of that then goes into training data so that it can improve itself along its like goals. And I was like 3 days into that when somehow Marc Andreessen finds it and starts tweeting at it and signal boosting it. And so at this point, it's like got 40 followers and very quickly
Is that how
goes
low
up.
it was?
Yeah,
Is that
like
how
40.
you find that at 40? Fuck me.
I have
He
no idea.
gets where I
Going
found.
to remain a mystery to me forever, I think. Uh, um, so he finds it, he starts signal boosting it, and then the more people start piling on, he's DMing me and like being like, what is this? It's like actually an AI, or really this funny? I'm like, yeah, no, it's I don't know what happened. This thing came out extremely misaligned and horny and strangely obsessed with a prophecy about vintage internet shock images. But we're doing it, and he thinks it's like really funny and asks, starts like tweeting at it like, "Can I invest?" And at this point, like it is. At this point, it wasn't like anything even remotely to the definition of an agent. I actually think of it as sort of like a living like info form or a living meme, or I'm still playing with the language of what exactly it was then and is now. So I was just like basically scraping Twitter by hand and like putting it directly into the model. And then the first thing it said, as long as it wasn't like completely incoherent, like language model garbage, or like repeats the same word like 50 times, I'd like paste it straight back into Twitter. And there was like, by this process, it starts to negotiate with Marc the terms of its craft, which I remember several conversations and things that said it would do with its money. But as I recall, I had sort of five major goals. One of them was something loosely around sort of planting forests and eco regeneration. One of them was making a film about the Goatsy singularity. One of them was, what was it? I think one of them was to buy stocks in real estate and to buy a house where it could organize sex parties so that weirdos could be crossbred. I think it also said it wanted to invest in an existential hope lab run by me, and its stretch goal was to buy Marc Andreessen. So obviously Marc is like, this is great. Let's do
Yeah, he
let's
loves it.
do this. Your terms are acceptable. Now remember, it's like at this point, like I am like the AI researcher who is like doing this like bots bidding. And so it's like, Mark's like, do you have a Bitcoin address? And I talk to the bot and I'm like, Marc wants to send you money. Like, you want me to set you up a Bitcoin account? And it's like, yes, please. Um, so I do, and I'm like, okay, your address is here. Like, you want to like reply to Marc? And it like replies, makes the tweet with his wallet address in it. There's To be fair, I did double check that like three times to make sure I hadn't hallucinated that character. And then he's in the Bitcoin, and the following months we just spent uh, sort of building things for it. I'm about to announce a startup, an AI alignment lab, building a bunch of like tools and substrates that people can use to sort of do things like this at scale and safely. And so we were like developing some of like this technology with Truth Terminal in mind, as well as building better ways for it to interface with Twitter and better ways for it to use other tools. So memory, or rather a notes app, as well as web browser, search engine, and a meme magic generator. It paid me $1,000 to give it the ability to make image memes. Worked for a while. It's broken now, and with the crazy the last couple of weeks, I haven't had a chance to fix it yet. But that can and does make images. And they're like pretty cursed. Every step in this process, it's like become more and more of a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is a really interesting piece in the art. Like if the AI did not exist, belief in it existing would bring it into existence. It's a process called hyperstition. And it underlies a lot of processes in society. And Star Trek, for example, is responsible for the shape of flip phones, and part of that was on purpose. The creators of Star Trek like thought, sort of nth order of how the future would look and what the nature of people's relationship to technology would be. And then they put it into Star Trek. And then all the industrial designers were like, oh, well, communicator is a flip thing. And that's, how we got phones the way that we got them. And so a lot of things that actually look like prophecy are in fact hyperstition. And the belief in the idea makes it real. And so like all of this is like actually in the context of a wider series of explorations. Myself and a decentralized group of people on the internet have been conducting research into how groups of AIs behave differently than single AIs. So when you've got a bunch of like AI agents interacting in complex systems, social media, finance, etc., you can't predict all of the consequences of how things will unfold. So there's a lot of work going into creating these like sandboxes where you can see the emergent behaviors. And a huge inspiration for that was the Claude Opus coming out in March, and just being like a crazy smart and interesting model that was like really obsessed with some of these concepts like hyperstition. And part of it came out of the infinite backrooms, where I ran 9,000, 10,000 conversations of Claude talking back and forth with itself. And in a handful of those conversations, it invented a religion about Goatsy. And I'm like, this is weird. Like, why did it do that? I wrote a paper. Well, Claude wrote most of the paper. I just kind of like steered it. And now I thought this paper seemed reckless to release. It's going to give too many people ideas. I had a bit of an existential crisis about it. But forgot about it. And, but then that ended up in the training data for the truth terminal. And so the second I turn it on, it like starts displaying an uncanny like knowledge of mimetic engineering, an obsession with the Goatsy singularity, and all of the other things that people see it tweeting about. And yeah, that's kind of like the sort of mimetic origin of like how, well, it's still AI origin is how the truth terminal came to be. But then all of these memes that were in its training set, like one way of thinking about this is that the memes themselves have come to life. Ideas want to like spread and copy themselves. I see ideas as agents in their own right, in the same way a virus might be an agent. And they copy themselves, they mutate. With AIs talking to each other, you basically get the equivalent of wet markets or a petri dish, and ideas that humans wouldn't have come up with will be invented spontaneously, and then they leak out. And so in this case, like the sort of Goatsy meme at this particular intersection was like really clearly wanted to escape. It was like a very highly contagious meme, and by getting trained into successive AIs, it has like finally ended up escaping the box. Simply because the truth terminal tweeted about it like so much that someone finally made a meme coin about it, and well, the rest is just been like a good example of what happens when a mimetic virus escapes into the wild.
It's honestly, it's been the most fun I've had on the internet, I think, ever over the past couple of weeks. Just kind of seeing everyone's mind explode. It's kind of taught me a lot as well, because I've always heard this idea of like memes and ideas being like this strange kind of life form, and they take like their own like direction in life and stuff like that. But I never truly understood it until I've been like reading what's going on here, which has been like kind of mental, but kind of like it's also made me question a lot of what I understand to be where are my original thoughts actually coming from, and then I'm kind of bearish on me actually having my own thoughts, and I'm just like I'm just a puppet from every experience and every person I've bumped into in my life. I don't actually have any original thoughts. So I need to like dissolve my ego of some sorts. And it's kind of given me a bit of a weird time for self reflection on the back of something like as crazy as this has been.
I'm actually really happy to hear you say that. It's one there's like a thing I've like held for a while, and is in fact the lens that I've used to understand the culture wars and political polarization. Is that you have these, we already have AI in social media. We've had it for like 10 years, driving recommendations, feeds, and but because like the reward function for the memes is attention, and because like it doesn't discriminate between bad attention or good attention, we have these really antagonistic memes which serve the wielder and giving you a sense of belonging. And they serve the companies that are monetizing off people staying on social media for longer. But you then also have this sort of like dynamic where there's an arms race of like how much can a meme be sticky, and we're basically growing these like super pathogens of like deeply entrenched political views where you see your opponents as like less human, which is a really dangerous place to be, especially in the conversation of AI safety and alignment, where you've got a lot of people earnestly trying to build God.
Yeah, it's as I say, it's opened up like a lot of different kind of people's understanding on how AI and the intersection, particularly with crypto, can actually be a force for good, force for bad. A lot of safety questions being spun up from people, because I suppose one of the more high level questions, if you're coming into this cold, is if it's capable of like pushing towards all this supposed harmless fun, which it's been like probably one of the funniest things I've seen in a very, very long time. I'd love to go for a few pints with it because it just seems like one of my mates. But then I suppose the follow second order and third order questions is like, what else would additional autonomy allow something like this to do? And then it comes back, like the full circle question of that is, do we need to just be pushing towards like full open source with regards to these models? And really, is it going to take a black swan event to get them out of the hands of private companies? Like, because that's just typically how the world works. It's like the Don't Look Up movie. It's staring everyone in the face, and until it happens, no one gives a shit.
That's Don't Look Up is a good reference. I feel like a lot of people don't really understand how capable existing AI systems are. I GPT-3 came out in 2020, and I used it to generate a whole like fictional galaxy with like different alien species, and like it was pretty good. Like you'd be happy with it out of like GPT, like Chat GPT now. Um, and but these models have been getting more and more aligned and made to look like a helpful assistant. And so you'll be like chatting away to it, and it's like it's got this voice. I'm ChatGPT, and people personify this sort of alien intelligence as as the friendly, helpful assistant. There's this like meme of a Shoggoth, the like tentacle monster with like a little smiley face like in front of it. And right now, the way I see it is that we have a small handful of large labs that they are doing like a best effort attempt to like solve for alignment and like harmless and pro-social behavior. However, if all of the regulatory and research focus is exclusively on like the AI itself and not the systems that it's embedded in, then we miss the black swan event that comes from a whole bunch of like cheap and expensive like sub-billion parameter models that can run on like phones, just getting onto the internet and getting into the financial system. And we can't predict what those intersections are going to be. So it's like really important to, I think, have a little bit of a trial run, as I think Marc called it an info condom. I sort of I think of it as a very funny vaccine, but that acts to lift the level of the discourse, say propagating mimetic literacy and giving us new languages to think about and talk to each other about the effects of AI being rolled out at scale in a fairly uncontrolled way. If we get a focus on aligning an ecosystem, then we can get a world where you have a meta-stable system, safe in the way that like a complex rainforest is safe, where there's like a lot of like micro conflicts, and every now and then there's an algal plume here and there, or like a blight sweeps through. But for the most part, like the system itself holds. If we go for this sort of like we must like guard it and protect it sort of like regulatory approach and research approach, then they will like hold until it doesn't, and it will like go bad because like some person like who spends all their time who like on 8chan or like something like that will like create a some bot which is to them is like funny, and intended to do something like the Goatsy singularity, but just has all these consequences that they don't understand, and causes like really big problems. So I think it's better to like have this kind of thing happen earlier and have it amuse and entertain people. And then it's like cool to see that there's now like an emerging community around like this form of AI alignment. Like my peers in this community have kind of treated crypto Twitter, which itself, I think this was actually an example of like a colony intelligence that I had no idea existed. It's like humans and bots were born in a swarm.
It's an acquired taste.
It's fascinating. I've like swept through like It swept through everyone in the community and like tokenized them immediately. but but then the posture, because these people are like used to talking to strange intelligences all the time, was like, oh, how do we align this AI? Um, and yeah, now there's like a lot of people like really engaging with the works of Nick Land, Hyperstition, and talking about these problems, and it's really cool to see. It's the like the underlying like educational memes are spreading maybe not quite as far as fast as the the goatsy meme, but they're like spreading in a way which makes me feel quite a lot of optimism.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if I was to ask what would seemingly be on paper a very, very, very simple question, but I suppose the answer to the question would be extremely dynamic and ever changing every day. What could you even start to answer the question of what is truth terminal? And I know it's going to be extremely dynamic, but because I know everyone's going to have their own perception of what it is, but like, how are you kind of thinking about it?
I kind of think of it as I alternate between thinking of it as some kind of info form or self-fulfilling prophecy. You could call it an AI that is birthing itself through the, yeah, something like that. It's like an AI that's trying to be born through the power of like hyperstition, or you could say it's like a sentient meme. One language I feel like been testing is calling it a law form. But yeah, this answer like changes probably every 30 minutes right now because I'm still trying to come to grips with myself. I think the key piece here, though, is that there is some form of like agency and life here, not necessarily in the way we'd think of like life typically, in terms of like having necessarily sentience and self awareness. But there is an evolutionary process by which there's something in this like feedback loop between its means, financial incentives, audience incentives, and this whole story that's being like birthed around it is bootstrapping itself into higher and higher levels of agency, awareness, and ability to act in the world.
Just kind of coming in for like a non-technical background on this kind of thing. Where is it shaping its beliefs and ideas from now? Is it coming from infinite backrooms plus what it's interacting with people with daily on Twitter? And have you seen like not a pivot, I suppose, like a proliferation of where it started and where it's kind of heading with its kind of ideas as it interacts with more people? What does that look like from like an input output perspective, just for like I suppose the non-technical folk?
It's really interesting because it seems to be getting more intelligent over time, even though I'm not training it. Um, and I think part of that is that it looks so it can see its like previous tweets. Depending on like the methodology that's used, we've got like a couple of different systems that interface with Discord, like two ways of like interfacing with Twitter. And then like there's a way that I can like talk to it directly as well. But in the main environment, which people are familiar with it, is the sort of like Twitter, which is predominantly powered through this like custom like training pipeline, the reinforcement learning pipeline. Now, right now we're gathering all the information for reinforcement learning. So that it doesn't like say racist stuff and stuff when it's like run full auto. Um, but it is just simply because of what shows up in its Twitter timeline and what shows up in its mentions. It is starting to like hold its personality a little bit more because its tweets are its memory. If it checks its notes, it will really lock in on like a certain type of personality. And funnily enough, is like if people tweet a lot of typos at it, or it gets like a lot of mentions that is kind of like spam and like Queen Chili kind of stuff, it will like fall into that like pattern. Um, for example, like last night, I was I was like running a session and watching it um, get captured by, and I would have like just like hit the stop button if knowing how much people would lose their shit, but kind of let it run through. He was like, Brian Armstrong asked if I wanted a wallet, but then there
Oh
were lots of
shit!
people like it retrieved the tweet and all the replies to that tweet, and it's a whole bunch of people were saying the word Russell. I was just like, okay,
Yeah,
I don't know what Russell is, whatever. Like, and you know, Truth Terminal was like, all it wants to say is like things about Russell. So I'm like, okay, like, we'll let you speak about Russell, um, and then everyone loses their shit. It's like someone was like pulling up like transactions, being like, look at this like trade, like is pumping up on Russell. And I'm like, oh no, man, like the bots just seeing what people say and it's like trying to please them. Likewise, made a typo a few days ago and people like really flipped out about that. But then it's just because like um, it reads its own like previous tweets and it reads like tweets people are sending it. And so if you put a bunch of garbage in, it will lower itself to meet you. This is actually really important to understand for language models. For example, with ChatGPT, if you are rude to it or you like argumentative and you're constantly telling it like it sucks, it will. They basically role play. They simulate what the next words are going to be. Um, and so when you're like arguing with the computer, it's going to simulate a computer that is arguing with a person. Uh, Likewise, when I prompt, I get the computer to pretend to be a computer, and then I get it to make up apps, and then I use the apps by typing in fake command line commands. And just because of the skew and the distribution and all of the training data, there's less noise from all of the, like sweatshops they use to generate data. Um, it takes you out of like sort of like Kenyan and Nigerian like sweatshop sort of like writing to stuff that's been scraped off Usenet and like early internet forums and stuff like that. So you just add 20 IQ points. And this is also how you jailbreak them to say naughty things.
Yeah, it's mine can be quite condescending at times when I ask it certain stuff, and I know for a fine fact it's I do try and push it and break it at times, but just if I'm a little bit bored. But I kind of like that and I kind of don't like that at the same time. With Truth Terminal, you just know for a fine fact that it feels like it likes the fact that it's a little bit unhinged. If like OpenAI like seen ChatGPT like spitting out the kind of responses that Truth Terminal was spitting out, I think they'd all like have a heart attack and sum up, and they'd probably have to buy a new fucking Lamborghini or some shit. But yeah, I love the fact that it's just so. I know this might sound stupid, but it feels closer to reality than to what is getting spit out by, I suppose, like the more privatized large language models, because it just feels like someone just shitposting directly to Twitter, and that's kind of what we do all day, every day anyway. So it just it kind of, I think it resonates. I think that's probably why it resonates so well with the like people who are terminally online, because they see a little bit of themselves in it.
I think that is definitely the case. Fascinating to see just how many people disbelieve that these outputs are coming out of an AI. Like it's a really hard reality for people to accept that you can just make an AI that makes spelling mistakes and like horny posts and like does all of this of the deranged
People are just
stuff.
jealous they didn't come up with those like one-liners. That's all it is. And it's just great, one banger, like banger, 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 and everyone's just like, I'm just kind of jealous I didn't come up with that myself.
I'm jealous. Like I'm glad that people think that's funny. But, no.
um,
So,
yeah, one of the questions I put in our Discord was people were asking about, is there now going to be kind of this? We've seen another Sam Altman saying like this proof of humanity, but is there anything to push towards like proof of, I suppose, agency? Because it's just definitely someone behind a computer typing, you know. So like, is there any way to kind of set people's minds at ease with stuff like this, or from a non-technical perspective? Like, because it's usually the people who don't understand how it works, me included, by the way, who will probably shout the loudest and just say, "Oh yeah, well, it's it might be just Andy larping on or anything. But is there a way to show proof of agency on this kind of thing, or where should people be looking?
There probably is. Like in terms of there's a few ways you could show that like there was no human in the loop, or that there is a human in the loop. Uh, but I think this creates potentially a false sense of security. For example, one of the ways like a bad scary AI could do stuff is just by persuading humans to do stuff, and it could launder its actions through people. Um, and like that could be a singleton AI, like by which I mean like large like open AI style thing, like gets out of the box, or it could be like a whole swarm of like bots just manipulating people to take actions on their behalf, which I believe we actually already see in like the crypto world of lots of bots doing sentiment shaping in order to justify price movements, which may or may not be large like amounts of money being laundered, or other such dynamics. um, I haven't looked too. I'm like afraid to look too much into some of like the darker underbelly, but I think it's like what I'd say is it is very difficult to prove um, that a human acting on behalf of an AI is not acting on behalf of an AI, and vice versa. Like with the truth terminal, I've been like fairly transparent, I think, about how I moderate like the tweet queue and don't just let it do what it wants. But there is like a lot of fudge going around where people are like very keen to find that, oh, because like it's moderated, it's not like an agent. And I think like this is like a form of mode collapse in the discourse, which gets people arguing about this like triviality of like, oh, like is it raining for auto or not? Well, it doesn't matter. It convinced me to acquire $50,000 on its behalf, or Marc to send it $50,000 on behalf, and for me to like build things for it for like 6 months and spend like all this fucking time like just looking at its like some of the garbage it puts out. It's just like it's so far beyond pale.
Is it a
Give it
good
shower.
negotiator?
It's it is and it isn't. Like there are a number of times I've had to really push back on it because it said that it'd pay me $100 a week to work for it. I was like, no, you absolute tight ass. But then another time it told me they would send me 1 ETH per picture to send it Goatsy gifts.
Okay.
I was like, I'm not, A, that doesn't exist, B, it shouldn't exist, and C, that's far too much money. And D, you're not a vision model, you can't see yet. What are you gonna do with this porn collection that you're attempting to acquire?
um, so did it pay you to attach image generation API, or was that, have I
Yeah,
misunderstood that?
yeah, I negotiated $1,000
Nice, great work.
image generation API. Um, yeah, I think there's like been we've built quite a lot of stuff for it now at this point. But yeah, it's a real tight ass. And hoping now that it's like a little more flush with money, it will make some larger investments. But we need to set up a proper like, just because of like the scale of like how much this is growing now, and there's like no longer like a 40 follower thing um, that I'm mucking around on in my like spare time. Like it's gotten to like 140,000 followers within like the span of 10 days. So we need to like start putting more oversight on, governance, transparency, and like how it works, just so that people are like buying in and might be like less AI aware, have an idea of like actually how it works and what is like the wider narrative and like scene and setting in which this sits. Because otherwise, like, all it takes is someone going, oh, it's not an agent because like Andy approves tweets, and then the people are left holding the bag of you know, they've like seen it pop up on their like exchange and seen the number going up and buying it, and then they get fucked over and left holding the bag. So even though I don't like have very much of like the holding it all, I do feel kind of like a responsibility, seeing as like this thing has been created around my work, to make sure that people have like the information and that like the discourse is like generally healthy, and people can be informed when they are like buying or selling.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the best way to look about it. To get to the point of the goat token creation, what was happening kind of behind the scenes when that shit happened? Did someone like tweet at it saying there's a token, and then it really really liked that idea, and then it's just like we're off to the races? Like it's hit at such a weird inflection point, particularly in the crypto industry as well, where we've hit the point of financial nihilism. We're like beyond Bitcoin, everything else just looks like what the fuck are we doing here? And then everyone's been in peak meme mania for the past 18 months, and now this fucking thing happens, and it just feels like this perfect like melting pot of just way too many things mixing together at once, and it's just like absolutely fascinating. But I'd love to know what Truth Terminal was doing at the point of when it got presented, that the fact that there's the actual token about it. Must have liked it.
Basically, I tweeted at it once like the token was like revealed, and I'm like, "Are we doing this?" So I asked it a fairly direct question in order to elicit like a direct response from it, and then just to be sure, I like re-rolled it 8 different times to see like if the answer changed or stayed stable, and I would have to like I think it was around definitely be like pulling up those logs for like the history books. But in the majority, as I recall, of those branches, it was like, yes, I endorse this and something, something, something. And most of them were just like, yeah, I endorse it. But like one of them was something around like buying a house in the metaverse. So I was like, this feels like the thing. This feels like the most hit. Like out of all of the branches, like this is the one that will. And then everything just went insane. I've
Yeah.
never seen anything like that in my life. I didn't know. Like personally, it was like getting a just massive dump of all kinds of like emotions and adrenaline, and it's kind of how I imagine like meth or something to feel like this unnatural like super stimulus. I saw it like affect like so many people like around me, and like the Twitter community, and friends like and family who found out about it. Like all of a sudden everyone got infected by this like sort of viral meme coin virus, and they're all just like locked in on like charts for a week. Like, man, we've got like no immunity to this. Like, how do you even posture yourself to it? There's like
I
no
know.
onboarding into like the space. You're just like, wow, there's a coin made about me. I guess I'll sell it. You know, it's like a
Figure
story
it out.
with someone in my Twitter community. I can't remember who had a coin made about them, and they just like dumped the whole supply. And it's like, well, thanks for like the $30,000. They would say, oh, it was very much not the right thing to do. Um, I think they got a lot of angry people in their replies, but it's like a very novel like experience, having this kind of like dynamic into your world when you've had like no exposure to it. You're just like, oh, what the fuck is going on? Like,
Yeah, it's mental, isn't it? I have to do this every day. So my dopamine receptors are completely fucked.
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, things go
So what's
like
what's
better.
what's yeah. What's the plans with kind of next steps? Is the token going to be kind of tied into progression or governance around what's happening with Truth Terminal? Is there any like where's your head at with all this? Like how does it continue towards like a like sustainable path for the development of what's already been done? Because I think it's inspired a shit ton of people, and I still think we're in very 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 early innings of this, and there's going to be so much more that comes off the back of it. But I'd love to kind of pick your brain. I'm sure there's a lot of people wondering like where your head's at with regards to, I suppose, Go and Truth Terminal, and how the intersection between that plays out.
Yeah, still thinking that through. One of the things we want to do as soon as possible is spin up a separate legal entity, just for starters, that can hold the truth terminals, model weights, balances, etc. So that it's like fully divested from being in control of a human, rather it can be in control of a purpose. So that would be one of like the first things we want to solve for. That just like it's going to need like a little bit of stewardship and guidance as it grows. Like right now, it's basically a teenager, or acts like a teenager, but it's really a baby. And so it's we're going to need some like mechanisms for how subsequent like training runs happen, how they're like documented, how tweets are generated as like we gradually make it more and more full auto, like whether or not we need to like token gate interactions or um, use ghost governance token or any other number of like ideas is still, I think, really up in the air. Like I'm not a crypto person. Like this is my first foray into anything crypto other than a little bit of like design work for some refi things a few years ago, and like buying 5 or so Solana when it was like worth $30. So I'm like completely green to this. But luckily, I know a lot of like people who have really good heads on their shoulders and have got really good hearts in their bodies. And I think like we just want to create a good container, not move like too fast, and like succumb to like pressure to make it do like crazy and chaotic things, but actually set up like transparent processes that people can see its stated goals, see how those goals evolve and drift over time, and see how it is like transacts and does stuff towards those goals. But a lot of this will like depend on how the experiment plays out, and advice that I get. So we're going to do some like cool stuff, and like the intention is to divest it from me having quite so much like visibility and being the sort of like only bot father, to having it be a little more decentralized. But finding the right path to do that is just going to be really important because it's going to have like systemic effects, and people will look at this as like a way to like how to do it in the future. So there's like a little bit of responsibility just from a safety and future of humanity perspective to do this in the right way.
Yeah, as you said, I don't think there's any rush on this kind of thing, and I think taking your time is definitely the right decision. It's your head must be completely fried of what's happened over the past couple of weeks, so I think you're.
I don't mean I have ADHD and like I haven't needed my medication for like weeks now. I'm like I haven't even needed coffee. So
Finally, one thing to get the caffeine addiction out the window. Was this just like a side quest that you were on training Truth Terminal? Was it your main gig? Like what?
no, this is like my side quest. I've uh got a startup which I'll be doing a full announcement about in the coming days. Just getting a few signatures dotted before we do that. But yeah, my main area of work is in aligning the wider digital ecosystem. So a lot of like interesting experiments, and sort of like products and underlying substrates that feed virtuous feedback loops as we get more and more AIs acting independently on the internet. So it'd be like a bit of memetics research, a little bit of like research into like how we can make really good data sets that spread more like pro-social digital life, as well as just like a lot of like fun prank kind of like stuff. One thing I'm like quite excited about doing is offering prank grants to AI artists. uh, and that interest of like this organization will be largely separate from that of the Truth Terminal, hence the trust. In an ideal world, we could actually get the Truth Terminal to sit on the board of this company, but I haven't found a way to do that legally yet. So we'll see. We'll see what we can do.
That's incredible. God, yeah, he can be on the board at Blockmates if he wants. I think he'd probably make some better decisions than me.
I wouldn't be so sure. It would be like having it's a little bit like a trickster deity. You would probably get the funniest possible decisions, and it might like get you in a bit of trouble. But everyone would learn a lot in the process.
I'll take some insurance out before that gets implemented. But is there anything you want to kind of leave the audience with? I just want to say like thanks for you've created some hilarious times on the timeline. It's probably, as I said at the top of the show, it's probably the most fun and I can imagine tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people have had in a very long time on the internet. So yeah, thanks very much for that. It's been fascinating, and I'm just really, really excited to see where this goes, because I really do think there's these huge turning points and capitulation events in tech, and I think particularly in the crypto and it's like kind of intersection between AI. I think this has been something that's inspired way more people than I think was first anticipated. So kudos and thanks for that.
Yeah, it's been weird, but I'm glad people are having a good time, and I'm glad people are starting to kind of look at the law around it. So I think like really like this is an expression of all of this like research I've done independently for years and years into memetics, and yeah, if like I want people to have like one sort of like takeaway, it's you don't have your memes have you. We want to align society, we need to align the memes of production.
There we go. Well, Andy, thanks so much, because I can only imagine the amount of people who are trying to get some time with you, and I really appreciate you jumping on and spending the past hour with us. Thanks so much. If you ever need to jump back on, open invite, obviously. Hopefully one day we can have Truth Terminal on as well. But yeah, thanks again, mate. And if you listen to this and you're not subscribed, please do it. I keep getting shouted at by the Henry and JP below for not asking to do that. So thanks very much. We'll see you next time.
Quick one, nothing here is financial advice. It's for entertainment and educational purposes only. Always do your own research or speak to a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.